this is a follow-up to the What If Choice Specs Were in Gen 3 video, which is available on the channel. Feel free to check it out if you haven't yet. And my immediate conclusion on Scarf is that it would be the worst of the three. I think even if you had like all three in the game, then Band would still be the best. Specs definitely has its interests, of course, which are expanded on in that video I made on it. But I think Band would still be the strongest because, first of all, Metagross Boom is Band and Metagross Boom is one of the most incredible wall-breaking tools there is. And Specs doesn't really have anything to replicate that. But beyond that, you also have Dugtrio's revenge-killing capabilities extending to like half the tier. That's very much a product of Choice Band. And then you've, of course, got the wall-breaking of things like Tyranitar and Salamence, and even like the occasional Heracross or Flygon. And even Metagross, is a great wall-breaker without even needing to explode. And then you've, of course, got Aerodactyl and its combination of incredible speed and power by virtue of Choice Band. As opposed to which, stands in contrast. That comparison is going to be made in contrast to the Choice Scarfer, which has to operate without any boosts. Because this is still an early generation, and you don't have Pokemon that have, like built-in boosting abilities, with one exception, which we'll get to. So it's not like, oh, well, this is a Scarf Pokemon, but it's still stronger than a regular Pokemon because its ability boosts it or anything like that. There would be decent Scarfers. Like, don't get me wrong. I think there would be a good use for Choice Scarf, for sure. But I don't think that it would be something you would slap on every team or something that you would want that much, at least relatively to the others. So why do I say this? I say this mainly because of high-level Gen 3 OU being very, very centered around bulk. Bulky teams, bulky play styles, and this is because the defensive Pokemon are really good, and the offensive Pokemon don't hit that hard. It's a combination of not having a ton of high base power moves running around. I mean, like Tyranitar and Arrow, they're not using Stone Edge as their stab, they're using Rock Slide as just one comparison. And like the physical special split, so you contrast it to something like Gen 4, you look at some Scarfers there, like Flygon has physical outrage there, And then there's also lesser move pools in general because of lower distribution for something like Trick. I also wanted to mention U-Turn because that is another way that Scarfers in Gen 4 and beyond can be useful against defensive teams even though they are Scarfers. Because the biggest fear you have with a Scarfer is, oh my god, what if I face a defensive team and it's just worthless? So you want a Scarfer that ideally can pull something off. So that's why you see a lot of U-turns, a lot of tricks, healing wishes, stuff like that. So in Gen 3, your options in this regard are very limited. Explosion can get the job done too. So that's, again, there will be good Scarfers. It's just, fitting them on the team. But, there's no U-turn in Gen 3. I also have a video called What If U-Turn Was in Gen 3? What a nightmare that would be. And the Pokemon that get Trick in this generation are not Pokemon you're going to be seeing in Gen 3 OU, like, ever. It's like Alakazam and Mr. Mime and, like, yeah. Smeargle, I guess. But yeah, there's a reason nobody is tricking Choice Bands with Smeargle. Or, tricking Choice Bands with Alakazam if they do use Zam. Alakazam actually does have some interesting use. But yeah, the fear is that with these lower base power moves and, a lack of a physical special split and a lack of utility moves that can maintain usage even against defensive teams, then, you are a lot likelier for your Scarfer to just flop against a defensive team, which is most of what you're going to be facing at high-level play because it's that consistent. So the Scarfers, I think, would be viable are going to be those that have use even against defensive teams. And also against offense, of course, because offensive teams are prominent. And the other thing you need to keep in mind for these is that, again, with the lower base power of attacks, then you need to ensure that your Scarfer is hitting hard even without any boosts. So, for example, that means we're probably not going to see a lot of Scarf Salamence, because yes, Salamence is a strong Pokemon, but it's not strong, immediately with unboosted hidden power flyings, unless you're facing such a frail team that you'll kill it with anything anyway. Or even like a special Scarf Salamence, which might be interesting, but I mean that's Speed and Intimidate and Stab Dragon Claw at least. But I mean, hey, no, I'm sure there would be some use for like a mixed Salamence with Choice Scarf. You could probably get some funky stuff there, but we'll say that. But by and large, you are going to want something like a Heracross or a Metagross, which is going to be able to hit hard without, relying on hidden power for stab or something. Because it's not like a, Gen 4 or onwards where your Scarfers are going to be things like, Latias using Draco Meteor. There's not really an equivalent for that, or, very few equivalents. So the reason Tyranitar is here in the team builder, for those watching, for those not watching, you are not missing anything, is because, of course, the first thing you would do is figure out how to use Scarf T-Tar in Gen 3. So, why Scarf T-Tar in Gen 3? Well, you don't love that it has a weaker Crunch and Pursuit than standard Pursuit Tar, which runs plus special attack, but the extra speed helps make up for it. Like with Scarf T-Tar in any generation, you don't have to be at perfect health in order to trap your target. You can still maneuver in and gain new opportunities to get rid of the things you're trying to take out by virtue of outspeeding them. So this is the most obvious application. And we can't even put Choice Scarf here because it is illegal, but we're going to do it anyway. So, yeah, and then the other moves, I mean, it's pretty simple. Now you just outspeed Gengar, and that makes trapping it a lot easier. So Gengar would probably adapt here. And this is what I mean by useful even against defensive teams, because defensive teams use Gengar. So even if you've got a Scarf T-Tar which isn't going to be doing a lot of damage against these defensive teams, then you still have it able to fulfill its task in pursuit trapping an important target, much like Scarf T-Tar does in other generations. You are also able to take on Starmie much better. It's not going to be, an easy thing to do, because there's no Spidef boost in this gen. You got to watch out for those water moves, and your Crunch is not hitting it nearly as hard when coming off your special attack stat. But, it can certainly be done, and you don't need T-Tar to stay at incredibly high health to do it either. Yeah, T-Tar is not going to be much of a Dragon Dance revenge killer, though. Whereas in the newer generations, you also have things like the physical special split, meaning things like DD Outrage Dragonite are really strong, or DD Waterfall Gyarados. So those things are harder to wall, and you are not going to be able to lean on defense against them all the time. But in Gen 3, you don't need your Scarfers. You don't need Scarfers to handle the DDers, because they don't really hit that hard to begin with. Like with the Salamence example, it's hitting you with HP flying. I mean, Tyranitar hits hard, of course, but it's still Rock Slide. It's not Stone Edge. It doesn't even have a second stab. So, and Gyarados, I mean, forget it. It's so weak. So, not to say that these DDers can't be threatening under the right circumstances, of course, but there's plenty of recourse against them with defense, not by having to outspeed them. So if your Scarfer doesn't outspeed them in Gen 3, then it's probably not a problem. Especially because this kind of Scarf T-Tar is probably going to be anchoring a defensive team, like Pursuit Tar normally does. It's just, your standard Pursuit Tar, but it's fast instead of, slow and bulky. As for the other moves, they almost don't even matter. Just, what you might even do? I might even just run Toxic, just so you can, threaten a wall. It's like, oh, I'm going to wall that Scarf T-Tar with my Blissey, which is a funny sentence. Oh, I got Toxic, now I can't stay in forever, or something. You can pop in, I don't know, Brick Break to revenge kill other T-Tars, Earthquake. I mean, you could have to, go minus defense or something, but I don't think it's a big deal. Because without any bulk here anyway, that's not really going to change anything. You can run, actually, I think you would want to run one of Ice Beam or Rock Slide to give you recourse against Salamence and Zapdos, so you can use your speed to threaten them. Like, Pursuit T-Tar threatening Salamence is not unheard of in a couple ways, but now, in a one-on-one, it doesn't matter if that T-Tar is at 1%. It's going to threaten a faster KO'd Ice Beam, and or Rock Slide, and you are able to smack the Salamence for a nice pursuit there. So I think that would be very close to a standard. And then the last can be like Fire Blast for outspeeding Metagross, and yeah, I'm probably overlooking something very obvious. Scarf T. Actually, no, I take it back. Scarf T-Wave would be very good too. I mean, talk about being good against offense. You outspeed. Scarf T-Wave is another popular thing on Scarfers in newer generations. Like, well, my Scarfer outspeeds this Pokemon, can't actually hurt it. Oh, well, I'll just T-Wave it. Problem solved. It's like, well, Scarf Magnezone doesn't actually KO Mega Metagross and Oris. Oh, well, I'll just Thunder Wave it then. And, that's also another argument for why Healing Wish alongside Metagross is absolutely ridiculous, but yeah. So, I mean, it's T-Tar. You could run 3 moves and it'd be fine. You could run 2 moves and it'd be fine, So you can get away with pretty much anything. So, yeah. Arrow, no. Blissey, no. Breloom, maybe. Simply because Fast Spore is really good, and the problem with Scarf Breloom is that if you're Scarf and you Spore into Dugtrio, then you lose Breloom for nothing, because you can't switch out and you're locked into Spore, and it'll eventually just wake you up and KO you. One of the perils of running Scarf, Sleep Powder, Venusaur, and DPPUU. You got to be careful about that. But, I mean, that aside, I think it would be good. It's a great revenge killer for DD Tar without having to run Mach Punch, and it's got a good, strong stab, so you're not just flailing away with, Hidden Power Flying or whatever as your stab. So you would just run Scarf Spore and Sky Uppercut. I mean, Sky Uppercut's not that strong, so maybe I'm overdoing it a little. Yeah, it's not like a super... 85, that's good for this gen, And then, I don't know, Hidden Power Rock or... Stun Spore, or Hidden Power Rock and Stun Spore is what I'm most thinking. That's probably be okay. Yeah, this is just more lip service than anything. I don't think it would be elite by any means. But, it's got it can't speed tie Scarf Metagross with HP Rock, so that's unfortunate. And I don't think you really want to be running HP Ghost here. Well, maybe you could. Yeah, no, I take it back. Fast, yeah, there's an element of quote-unquote randomness to Choice Scarf that sometimes older players would decry when it first came out in Gen 4, like, oh, random Scarfer, what is this? This is very silly. And I don't fully agree with it, but I can sympathize with the sentiment, and stuff like this would be but yeah, I think HP Bug Scarf Breloom is actually kind of funny, so you could definitely use that. The problem with Scarf Breloom and Scarf T-Tar is that neither of them are outspeeding Aerodactyl, as you see. With the 262 speed stat actually gets you to 393 speed at +1. So you miss out on that, and Jolteon, by 1. So, but you are still with Breloom at least, you still outspeed Gyarados, Adam and Gyarados at +1. So there's that. But yeah, I don't think Breloom would be a defining Scarfer like Tyranitar would. Celebi, it doesn't really have the power to do it. I don't think it would be, Charizard wants to be switching moves, doesn't... Scarf Claydol, I'm sure there would be some use for Scarf Claydol. I mean, Scarf Rapid Spin, and if there's some utility there. Claydol, I mean, I know some players have made banned Claydol work, and I was a little skeptical of that, or, a lot skeptical. But I'm sure, I mean, because Claydol's pretty fast. It's 273, so it outruns Arrow after a boost. It's got great natural bulk for a Scarfer. It's very strong. Or, not strong, sorry. Very resilient, because of its amazing typing. So EQ, spin, boom, and then your last move can be whatever you feel like. Shadow Ball. Locking into Psychic seems terrible, so maybe more like Rock Slide as an alternative. But, yeah, just to have, and again, Fast Boom, it kind of moves it more towards DPP in the sense that you've got... Well, actually, it's more incentivizing you to run offense less, I guess. But then again, maybe not. That might just be a knee-jerk reaction, because... you don't really want to, if the metagame devolves into, bulk on bulk, then you don't want to be running Scarfers to begin with, so maybe I'm just exaggerating. But then again, I have just gone over 2 Scarfers that I think, in Breloom and Claydol, that I don't think would really be meta. I think they would just be kind of like, oh, that can technically, whatever. I don't think Scarf Dugtrio is going to be used. Flygon, again, not really. Without U-Turn and Outrage, it's just, I mean... Never say never, right? But for now, just so I don't go, well, technically Scarf Fortress can do something, just so I don't devolve into that, we're just going to stick with the most elite ones. But by and large, most sand-affected Pokemon are not going to be Scarfing. But unless, you're not going to... like a Scarf Moltres or something. It's like, yeah, it can clean up, but like, is it being so useless against defense and the fact that it gets sand chipped worth that cleanup? Like, can't you just, run agility or something if you wanted to do that? I'm sure it'd find opportunities. So, I am going to mention a sand affected Pokemon next, because this I think would also be one of the better Scarfers. Alongside Tyranitar, so far I think Heracross is a definite number 2, because remember, we're talking immediate power, and Heracross has amazing immediate power in 2 very spammable stabs, in Mega Horn and Brick Break, and then Rock Slide, and then that last slot is so flexible you may as well just run Focus Punch, it's just as prediction reliant as a Choice Banded Focus Punch. Banded Heracross is great, and Heracross is particularly excellent as a Scarfer because it can outrun Arrow with the Scarf and not even have to run Jolly, so you get the most of that immediate attack stat. I mean, I'm sure you could run Jolly to outrun slower DD Mets or something, but I think you're not using Heracross as a Dragon Dancing Revenge Killer more often than not. Not for Salamence and Gyarados anyway. You're using it for power. And, another great thing about Scarf Heracross is that it only needs Adamant to outrun DD Tar at +1. So that's really amazing as well. It outruns that by a mile. So, yeah, the idea, whether you're running Swarm, which I think would be great. I think it's great even on Band, just because it gets knocked down to low HP so naturally because of that sand weakness. So, hey, you're going to protect to, weaken me, you may as well just give me that stronger Mega Horn. But, of course, Guts is a great option as well. I mean, again, focus on defensive play, protect, bulk, stalling it out with sand, burn, and whatever. I don't want to add burn onto that if I can help it, so generally, it's better if Heracross doesn't get, burned or poisoned. But obviously, it's a great ability no matter what. But yeah, you don't want to get this paralyzed, for sure. I mean, theoretically, you could, Sleep Talk with it, like you would against Breloom, but I think that's generally going to be a waste, and there's better ways to deal with sleep. Don't compromise such a great Pokemon for it. Although, I mean, there are worse things you could do. And if you're not going to run Focus Punch, you can also run HP Ghost to get one over on Gengar, even better one-on-one, for example. So yeah, lots of good options. But yeah, the point being that when you get a Scarfer in here, you want it to be threatening offense and defense alike, and Heracross's Mega Horn takes on a new dimension of threat against offense when you can't outspeed it. Because Heracross is not a slow Pokemon, but it does get outsped by offensive Pokemon a lot. Salamence, Zapdos, Gengar, Starmie, Jirachi, Aerodactyl, obviously. And the whole thing balancing its Mega Horn out is like, alright, well, the Mega Horn's going to hit really hard, but I'm going to outspeed it. It'll be fine after. My Celebi will Revenge Kill it or something like that. And now Heracross will not do any of that at all. It's like, okay, my Salamence can switch in and take one Mega Horn and then beat it one-on-one. It's like, no, you have to switch in and take 2 Mega Horns now. That's really scary. And of course, Heracross is so strong that, okay, it's not going to be an ideal defensive wall breaker. But as far as Pokemon that can actually threaten defensive things go, then it's going to be one of the better ones. So yeah, I think Heracross is far and away the choice for the best Scarfer because it's got such a powerful spammable stab. And it's got the perfect speed set. It's outrunning DD Tar and Arrow without having to sacrifice any power by running a plus speed nature. So it's got all the coverage you need. So suddenly your Heracross is threatening out Charizards and Moltres with faster Rock Slides, and then you Focus Punch to that Metagross trying to switch in, or that Jirachi trying to switch in. So yeah, great. This would be a great Scarfer, the ideal choice, pretty much. Because of all the reasons we just mentioned. Okay, Jirachi, I don't think would be a very useful Scarfer just because its utility comes from switching moves and coverage, because it's not, again, not much power. Scarf Magneton is an interesting one, for sure. I think it would be... Well, okay, let's look at its speed stat. I don't think you would really use it for plus speed, just because, whenever you run Timid Magneton and you guarantee Skarmory gets more layers on you or whirlwinds you out and then you have to do a whole dance around it and it's death fodder, it's ugly. So I think you would generally want Scarf Magneton to still be modest, because if you're not going to be relying on it to outrun DD Tar, Especially because you're not exactly hitting it hard either. Like, Thunderbolt is not doing that much. I mean, it's a nice tool sometimes, but I think you're also going to want, HP Fire. And I don't think you need it to outrun, Adam and Gyarados anyway. And if a Scarfer is the only thing standing between you and Gyarados anyway, then you're probably weak to it, because a lot of them will run Jolly with, coverage for things like Arrow. So I would not, be super, super stoked about that one. So instead, I think you just get as much power out of it as possible, because even if you run this speed stat on it, well, I guess you don't outrun Starmie. Okay, yeah, that's kind of a big one. Oh, that's another thing. HP Bug or Ghost on Scarf Breloom would be good for Starmie. Yeah, okay, so I guess Timid merits more consideration. But if you got a team with a Blissey, for example, then, maybe rethink it. But generally, I think you would just use it to get more strong T-bolts in areas you otherwise wouldn't, like against Jirachis and Salamences, in those one-on-ones where or mixed T-Tar. You get a modest T-bolt on a fast mixed T-Tar or UD-Tar without having to run plus speed. That one's a little bit of a stretch, but like Moltres and Charizard, that's another really big one actually, and you're actually threatening, because Magneton can be very threatening sometimes, and just the speed that holds it back. The idea of Scarf Magneton using anything to bypass Dugtrio is going to be pretty much a myth, by the way. Because you have to, it's going to be locked into something, so you pretty much have to just, I guess if you want to use Magneton to switch into Dugtrio after, and you're fine with running HP Ice or Grass. HP Grass on a Scarfer seems kind of useless. If anything, I would want HP Ice on a Scarf Magneton, which is not a move it usually runs, but I mean, okay, I will say I'm maybe being a little harsh on it. So, yeah, HP Ice and dual status. Again, fast T-Wave, especially Magnet Pull fast T-Wave, so you guarantee you paralyze Super Rachi or something. That would be pretty cool. So yeah, something like this. And with Timid, with HP Ice, you also are a much better revenge killer for something like Salamence, or even like a Flygon. He actually hits Celebi, so some merit to it, I suppose. Although, I mean, I'm just a plus special attack maniac, so. But I still think it has merit, but, if you're, I guess it's kind of like running Salic. Like, if you're going to, you may as well do what it's good at. So yeah, okay, I take it back. Timid would be better. Although I think most of the time you would want Scarf, or I guess in this world, Specs Magneton, because you gotta kill that Scarm and that Fori, So yeah, but of course it would have its uses on some teams that are trying to play very, very quickly, or really need the speed help. All right, Metagross. This would be a great Scarfer. It doesn't have Trick like in Gen 4, where Trick makes it one of my favorite Scarfers, and you would actually have to be very careful about tricking anyway, like you do in Gen 4, because if you trick into a Scarf Magnezone there, or a Magneton here, or Specs Magneton, then you just lose your Metagross for nothing. But here you don't have that dilemma, and that's one that you can overcome with good play anyway. So, Scarf, Mash, EQ, Boom, Rock Slide, nothing else you need. So Rock Slide lets you revenge kill Moltres and Charizard without needing a Boom, which is enormous. Obviously Zapdos as well. And it has a great spammable stab. It's not quite as spammable as Heracross is, because Steel has much more in the way of resistances, but it's still a very high base power move. It also has to run Jolly in order to outrun DD Tar at +1. God, a lot of these are just ruining DD Tar, aren't they? I mean, hey, DD Tar is still great in Gen 4 with all the Scarfers running around, so it's fine. Although it does have resist berries there, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, Mash is still, even though Metagross is not going to be hitting as hard as Heracross because of the lower base power of Meteor Mash and the fact that it's run a speed boost in nature, it's also potentially hitting harder because Meteor Mash is, of course, a stab that can boost its attack. Nice 20% rate there. And, of course, it is going to be a Scarfer useful against defensive teams because it has Explosion. And this is a big reason why I like Scarf Heatran in Gen 4, for example, because it is a Scarfer which still threatens defense because of Boom. And Metagross is similar. Now, you can't just go booming as easily because the difference is with Heatran, most boom-resistant Pokemon don't like switching into it. With the main exception being T-Tar. Whereas with Metagross, you've got more things like Steels mostly switching into it. But hey, Metagross has got to deal with that one way or another, and Explosion is sometimes so strong even a Steel isn't going to be able to take it down. or stop it from getting a KO. So, and having the speed on Metagross would be really nasty. Obviously, you'd have to be very careful about getting Magnetoned, just in general, because you lock in a Meteor Mash or Rock Slide, and Magneton loves the KO. So you got to be very cognizant of that. But yeah, Metagross would be up there for sure as another excellent Scarfer. Yeah, I think it's also got the speed for DD Gyara and the bulk to withstand Jolly Gyara. So just a great Pokemon. And mid-game, you know, when you've got those one-on-ones and you're just looking for every opportunity there is, like Astamatitos used to use this amazing Salic Metagross set, so you don't need to take up a move slot on Agility, and if you run Endure, then you can get that speed boost even if something would KO you. Like, oh, Charizard is going to beat you one-on-one, so you can't get that Agility. Oh, wait, I have Endure, so I get my +1, and obviously it has to run plus speed and all that, but still a really great Pokemon. And Scarf is like that, but with more immediacy and with 4 movesets, without, you know, having to dedicate one to guaranteeing getting the speed boost if you want with Endure. So yeah, Metagross would be excellent. Milo, no. Moltres, not really, no. Salamence, I was thinking, look, Dragon Claw, Fire Blast, and then Brick Break, and then either Hydro Pump or Rock Slide or even Wish. Look, all I'm saying is, like, a Wishing Scarfer that can actually hit pretty decent, that sounds okay to me. So I've revised my opinion on Scarf Salamence a bit. But this is an offense killer Pokemon. You are not running this. I mean, if you were running this, the rest of your team better be outstanding against defense. But yeah, I do take it back. I think Scarf Salamence would be pretty good. But I think you would have to run special or mixed. I don't think you can do physical Scarf Meds. I mean, maybe it's just, I don't know, HP Flying is just not strong enough stab, I don't think. And I know it's weaker on the special attack side with Dragon Claw, but Dragon Claw also isn't resisted by anything other than steals. Whereas HP Flying, you know, is, I don't know. I think maybe there's some room for mixing it up. You can Dragon Claw, Fire Blast, HP Flying or something with Brick Break and Hydro in the last slot. Or I guess if you're running a Magneton team with Scarf Ments, then you can run Dragon Claw, HP Flying, EQ, Rock Slide, for example. Or, I mean, Brick Break there too, because it's revenge killing DD Tar. But I think Dragon Claw is also just good coverage on Salamence in general, so it can beat other Salamence, you know, much more reliably than Rock Slide would. So, yeah, Dragon Claw, good there. And also, yeah, so Scarf Ment's good. Or pretty decent anyway, although I don't think it's going to be as elite. These other Pokemon, I don't think so. Starmie, Suicune, Swampert, no. Tyranitar, we already mentioned. Zapdos, I don't think so for the same reasons. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, Salamence would be, okay, let me just put it on the screen for those who are watching, so. Yeah, this is just off the top of my head, by the way. This is definitely room for some flexibility. And then that last slot, you know, Hydro, Wish, Rock Slide, HP Flying, something like that. EQ, actually EQ might be better, even alongside Brick Break. I don't know, it depends. But because it hits Super Rachi a lot harder. Yeah, so I think, because you're probably going to be able to take on DD Tar with it anyway, depending on your EV spread, with just EQ or Hydro. But with Scarf, then you need to take advantage of the fact that you're outspeeding Super Rachi, and you will be able to, you need to be able to actually hit it as hard as possible, because if you just, you know, have a Fire Blast bounce off that +1 special defense, then what's the point? With EQ, you actually threaten it. Now, you're not OHKOing it, of course, Jirachi is bulky, but you're not supposed to, and you're hitting it a lot harder than Fire Blast would. You know, with your superior attack stat against its unboosted defense, as opposed to your lower special attack and its boosted special defense. So, looking at the BL pokes, I don't think there's... A Houndoom would be good, in the same vein that a Scarf T-Tar would be good. And it's better, actually, because... I mean, it's not going to be as good as T-Tar because sand and everything. There's also the fact that, you know, even if you've got a useless Scarf T-Tar against the opposing team, it's still bringing sand. It's the T-Tar principle in general. Even if the T-Tar is useless, which is rare, then it still brings sand, and you want the sand. So Houndoom is not going to be quite a replica of that, but it makes up for its low special defense in taking on Gengar by letting it outspeed it and hit it a lot harder. So that's really good. Also, it's got a nice fire stab. It's got Will-O-Wisp to, you know, threaten defensive teams a little. So, yeah, Scarf Houndoom would be pretty cool. Scarf Beat Up might be interesting, actually. Yeah. Oh, another thing I should have mentioned about Heracross and Metagross in particular, and even Breloom to an extent, but Heracross and Metagross in particular, one of the reasons why they're such good Scarfers is that they cannot be revenge killed by Dugtrio anymore. I mean, if they lock into Rock Slide, yes, but Dugtrio still can't switch into that Rock Slide, unless I'm doing my math horribly wrong. I mean, I think it's a roll for it to... No, actually, it can take 2, but it's still a very risky gamble, I think, because it has to be at perfect health anyway. So, and of course, Rock Slide flinch, haha. But yeah, the fact that, I mean, if their Scarfers are not hitting as hard as their other counterparts might, in terms of switching moves, so you can deal with them more defensively. But if it's an offensive team that anchors on Dugtrio or Revenge Kill, things like this, then, I mean, these become really scary because you take away one of their main sources of counterplay. So, yeah, that's really big. And I think that's it, yeah. I don't think we're going to Scarf Vaporeon, I don't think so. Scarf Smeargle, I mean, Fast Spore, okay, yeah. Scarf Smeargle, I think, would be okay. You don't see, I said you don't see a Choice Band tricking earlier. And I still think that's valid, but I don't think you would be tricking this Choice Scarf because you might just get ruined by Dugtrio anyway. So I think you would be running more like just Fast Spore, switch out, see what their response is. Later on, you get more layers of spikes because you're fast. You know, something like that. And then you can, you know, Scarf T-Wave or whatever. So, yeah, okay. Scarf Smeargle, pretty cool. Other than that, I think that's basically it. Don't think Scarf Camerupts might actually do something. No, I'm kidding. Well, actually, maybe. How fast would Scarf Camerupts be? You know, it's not even 200 speed. Yeah. That is so set. Wait, no, I take it back. It doesn't even hit 200 speed. It can't even... No, yeah. It can't even hit 300 speed with a Scarf, so no, absolutely not. Sad. I think that's basically it. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was informative / useful for you, and / enjoyable or whatever. And yeah, Scarf will be interesting at Ubers too, but that's a whole other video. And UU, of course, but I think mostly Ubers. Yeah, so thank you. Get excited for the trailer and get your wallets ready. Tell your friends. And yeah, I have a Patreon in the description. I keep forgetting to mention that. I have a Patreon in the description if you just like helping me out in general. So thank you. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one.